Excerpts from the chapter The Stick That Heals. Maharajji often utilized his awesome powers to spread an umbrella of protection over his devotees. Nowhere was this more apparent or breathtaking than when it involved the healing of a devotee's illness. For some devotees, the healing took place with a touch or a glance or a word. For others, he prescribed medicines. Some stories reflect just how unusual these medicines were. To other devotees who came to him with illnesses, he implied that he could do nothing and sent them to doctors or to special temples to be cured. But when the situation demanded it and the devotee's faith was strong, Maharajji seemed to effect cures at great distances via telephone or even in dreams. When confronted with his miraculous healing powers, Maharajji denied all. All he would say at these times was, Sab Ishwar hai, it's all God. R's wife was dying and she needed surgery. None of her special blood type was available, even in Bombay. She went into surgery saying Maharajji's name, and to the surgeon's surprise, it was almost a totally bloodless operation. She later said that she had experienced going to a plane of consciousness where Maharajji had said, Take her away, she'll stay there. Dada's nephew was dying of smallpox, and apparently the last moment had come, for the body had been moved from the bed to the floor. It was suggested that a drop of water from the Ganga, with which Maharajji's feet had been washed, be placed in the boy's throat. When this was done, the boy sat up, and by the next day the smallpox was gone. At that same time, many miles away in the hills where Siddhi Ma was with Maharajji, suddenly Maharajji developed these spots all over his body. Since smallpox was not frequently seen in the hills, the hill people were not familiar with what it looked like. They got lotion and treated it as an allergy. By the next day, the spots were gone, and Maharajji said, That was wonderful lotion. What could these spots have done? I must have been allergic to something. Only much later was it ascertained that the boy's cure and Maharajji's allergy coincided. Maharajji was giving darshan in a small room of the ashram when a disturbed looking man came in. Maharajji at once started screaming at him and held out his hand toward him. The fellow mumbled and shook his head, but Maharajji kept demanding something from him. Finally, the man reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a tiny bird with a stick through its chest. It looked quite dead. Maharajji took the bird, still yelling at the crazy man, and pulled the stick out of the bird's body. He then gave the bird to the pujari, saying, Take it out and give it water. As the pujari took it and headed out the door, the bird flew out of his hand and away. One evening in Agra, Maharajji came to our house. He began to walk up and down the veranda, this way and that, again and again. It appeared to us that he was taking on someone's pain. After a few hours, he sat in a chair and asked for some hot tea. The phone rang. Devotees from Lucknow were trying to locate Maharajji. They said to tell Maharajji that there had been a 2.5 hour operation on one of his devotees, a poor 76-year-old woman from the hills, and that it had been successful. In his way, Maharajji had been with her throughout the operation. He appeared upset all during this time. When the call came, he expressed great relief. My wife had known Maharajji since her childhood, and her whole family had been devotees for a long time. I did not meet him, however, until 1962 when I had an operation on my lungs. I was in critical condition. My wife spoke to me then about Maharajji, and I was remembering all that I previously heard about him and was praying to meet him before my death. On that same day, Maharajji came to our home, approached my bed, and blessed me. From that day, my health began to improve, and the illness has never returned. During every visit thereafter, Maharajji told me that my health would be fine. At the home of some devotees in Lucknow, Maharajji was giving darshan to a large crowd. Outside Maharajji's room, a sadhu recited the Gita in a loud Pandit like voice while the man of the house cared for his sick cat nearby. Maharajji shouted to his devotee, "What are you doing with that cat?" The devotee explained that since the cat was extremely ill, he was warming it in the sun, and further, he thought of taking it to the vet. "It's a fact of nature," Maharajji said, "that cats don't usually need doctors. She's the property of Mother Nature. She'll be all right." He took a small sweet, saying, "Give her this." Although the cat was so ill that it wouldn't even drink milk, it ate the sweet without hesitation. A minute later, it leaped up and jumped on the sadhu, interrupting his recital. Then it bounded away. When the devotee came back into the room, Maharajji said, "Your cat is all right now?" Animals cure themselves. When they are sick, they won't eat food. They'll find herbs and eat them. Ram Das gave a talk in Ohio in 1972 or 1973. A boy who attended the lecture that night got on the first plane the next morning, flew from Cleveland, Ohio to New York, to London, to New Delhi, where he got in a taxi and rode up to Kainchi. Less than 36 hours earlier, he had heard Ram Das talking about Maharajji. He walked into the ashram. He had taken off his shirt since it was so hot, and I could see that on his chest he had a bad rash. I welcomed him and asked him where he had come from, and he told me his story. Then I asked him why he hadn't treated his rash. He explained that all the medical authorities had told him it was incurable. He had tried injections and salves and nothing had worked. I said that was silly. It was just tinea corpus, which is really very easy to cure. I said that in fact Dwaraka was going to Nainital and he could get the sulfur tar to cure it and could bring it back that night. Then in a few days the rash would be gone. And he said to me, "I heard Ram Das just 2 days ago, and now I've met Dr. America, Maharajji's nickname for me, and I'm here in Maharajji's ashram. Anything you say." His eyes were as Dwaraka brought back the sulfur tar. I showed the boy how to use it and told him the rash would be cured in just a few days. He agreed to use it and said he was on his way to Badrinath that day for a week, and he went off to the chai stall. I got to thinking that it had been a long time since I'd practiced medicine and I was a bit rusty. I went to where I was staying and checked my medical books about this disease that I had just diagnosed. I realized that I had diagnosed the wrong disease. The treatment I had given him was absolutely useless, so I raced down to the chai stall just in time to see him get on a bus and be gone. I felt very bad. By misdiagnosing his disease, not only had I failed as Maharajji's representative, but I had sent the boy off with a useless medicine. And when he came back, he was going to think that all the people around Maharajji were fools and incompetents. The week that he was gone was just awful for me. I had done something terrible. After a week passed, he came back. I saw him from across the ashram and ran out to him and said, "I'm sorry." He said, "Sorry? Look." He opened his shirt and his chest was completely healed. Not even a scar. It was all gone. I didn't understand, but I knew it wasn't the medicine that I had given him. I went to the window of Maharajji's room we called the office and I said, "Maharajji, thank you. You cured him." He said, "Sab Ishwar hai. It's all God." A woman devotee was sick from eating too many pickles. She loved them but had a bad stomach and couldn't digest them. So when she'd eaten mango chutney, the next morning her stomach was bad. Her husband told Maharajji that his wife was sick, so Maharajji came running with something wrapped in a piece of paper. We all thought that he had brought some secret herb or ancient remedy. Maharajji opened up the packet and handed the contents to her husband, a cellophane wrapped tablet of Gelusil. I had discovered that I had diabetes and wasn't supposed to eat anything spicy, starchy, greasy, or sweet. After that, I went to Kainchi for the first time and was served a big plate of puris cooked in grease, some halwa, and some spicy potatoes, all precisely the things I shouldn't eat. The doctor had told me that if I ate such things, I could get very, very ill. I thought about what the doctor said and looked over at Maharajji, who was twinkling. I was trying to decide whether to have faith in the doctor or faith in Maharajji. At that time, I didn't even know if he was my guru. It was my first day on the job as Maharajji's devotee. I finally decided to eat the food. In fact, I was so hungry, I ate two big plates of it. Every day thereafter, I would come and stuff myself. After a few weeks, I went to Nainital and had my blood sugar level tested. I was down to borderline low. The doctor said, I don't understand how this could have gotten so low so quickly. This doesn't make sense. I said, well, I think I know what happened. My mother was ill. Many doctors had seen her and had said she was septic and must go to the hospital. My mother, who is very orthodox, did not want to go. I wrote to Maharajji and he asked me to take her to a homeopath whose name he gave me. My mother was cured. However, the old homeopath who had never met Maharajji said, so many are sent to me by this Maharajji, and no matter what medicine I give him, they are cured, even when the disease is chronic. I don't know how it is done. One time, while I was staying at Kainchi, my wife came for Maharajji's darshan, though I didn't know she had come. In those days, she was feeling great pain in her heart. Whenever she would go up or down the stairs, her heart would start palpitating. She would come to me, weeping, thinking she was about to die. But putting my faith in Maharajji's power, I had no worries about her and never spoke of this to Maharajji. This day, she came to Maharajji herself and told him. Immediately, Maharajji called out, where is he? Call him. I came, and he said, what? She is ill and you don't care? He went on talking like this. I didn't reply because I knew that whatever you are thinking, he knows and he replies to your thoughts as if you had spoken them. You think and he talks. I was thinking, why should I do anything? It is all in his hands. He replied out loud, no, there is a doctor. Go to Agra. He is a heart specialist. He is a great disciple. Then Maharajji turned to one of the mas standing by and said, tell him how I sent your relative to him. This doctor is a great saint. She said, when I showed the doctor the letter that Maharajji had sent us, he came running to treat my relative at the house. Maharajji said, and what happened? Well, in only 2 to 3 days, she was all right. Just see, Maharajji exclaimed to me. He is my great disciple. You go. Tomorrow you leave this place. Jao, go. If you need money, I will give it to you. You must go. I didn't say anything. I just thought in my heart, well, Maharajji, you are so great. I have no need of going there. You are God. You can cure her. He immediately replied to my thoughts. No, no, you must go. Badmash, this is my order. I kept mum. He said, don't you know? The doctor is a great saint. The moment she has his darshan, she will be all right. You see his grace, you go to him, there will be no need of medicine. You see him, she will be all right. You go. Tomorrow you will have to go. Don't deny it. I had been thinking that I would not go. What? You don't obey my orders? Obey my orders. You are very wicked. You have to go. Well, I was thinking, it is a great trouble to me, but he says I have to go, and so I must go. The next day, I thought he would direct me to go, but he didn't say anything about it. He said, well, come here, sit beside me. How many people are coming to the temple? give them prasad, give them whatever they need. But he didn't say anything about going to Agra. From that day, even till now, 8 years, my wife has had no pain. Maharajji did not heal all who came to him with illness or who prayed to be healed. Why some were healed and others were not was known only to him. Sometimes he would apparently lessen the illness but leave the individual with some of the suffering. His comments at these times suggest that Maharajji's healing acts were intimately related to the karma of the individual, that often it was necessary for the person to suffer part or perhaps all of the pain of the illness. While most people do not want to suffer, Maharajji now and then reminded his devotees that suffering brings us closer to God. When my daughter was born, she was very sickly. I took her to an allopath and to an Ayurved, but no one could help. I took her to an astrologer who said she has 3 planets indicating death. If she lives past 2.5, then bring her to me for her chart. Now it is useless. Then I brought her to Maharajji and asked his help. Maharajji just bent his head down on his arm and hid his face for some time. For about 5 minutes he concentrated. Then he picked up his head and said, "Don't worry, she'll be all right." After that darshan, my daughter got pneumonia again and again, but she lived. She is now 6 years old. I don't worry about her. What comes now is karma, and we must deal with it. One of Maharajji's devotees was seriously poisoned. He was suffering gravely, and no one expected him to survive. Maharajji said, "You have to be satisfied with that little bit of suffering. You have to take on some of it." In other words, his suffering would have been worse, but for Maharajji's grace. But indeed, he survived. My elder sister has always been very sickly with various maladies. Maharajji told her that it couldn't be helped and that she must somehow work off past some samskaras. He told her to keep her mind always in devotional thoughts or she would lose everything. Maharajji asked an Indian girl 4 times, "Do you like sorrow or joy?" Each time the girl answered, "I've never known joy, Maharajji, only sorrow." Finally, Maharajji said, "I love sorrow. It brings me closer to God." The husband of a sick woman went to Maharajji, and Maharajji made a stick in a certain way and gave it to the man with instructions to put it under his wife's pillow. He did this, and soon she got better. But when they looked for the stick, it was missing. The husband, who was now greedy to have the stick, went to Maharajji and told him the stick was missing. Maharajji said, "You have your wife. What do you want with a stick?" Later, the mother of another man became ill. So the man went to Maharajji and said, "You gave so and so a stick to heal his wife. Will you give me a stick to heal my mother?" Maharajji said, "She was a young girl and I saved her. Your mother is an old woman and she'll die." And she did. My father had a series of operations, and before and after each one, Maharajji visited him. The last time he became ill, however, Maharajji didn't come. We knew that his life would soon be over. Maharajji came after his death. The same thing happened to my mother. When my mother became ill, Maharajji came to Kanpur but didn't visit our house, though he would always visit us when he was in town. She died. 2 days later, Maharajji came to the house and went to the prayer room where a photo of my mother was kept. Maharajji started weeping like a 5-year-old child. Weeping, weeping, weeping. In 1951, my father, the district magistrate, was ill and in great pain. He'd had a 99-degree temperature for 30 days. 4 days before he died, Maharajji came and brought him 4 roses. To my father, he said, "You'll be okay." To me, he said, the body has to finish. The first thing he said to us as we walked in and sat down was, Doctor America, how much money do you have? I said, Oh Maharaj Ji, I have $500. No, 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 really, how much money do you have? I insisted that this was all I had. He said, Yes, 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 that's in India. But how much money do you have in America? I thought about it, and I confessed to being a bit concerned that this was an appeal from him for money for some temple, and I said, I have only $500 back in America, which was true. Then I hastened to add, but I also have a very big debt from medical school. I had to borrow a lot of money to go through medical school, and even though I have $1,000, I owe a lot more than that. He said, What? You have no money? You are no doctor. It sounded exactly like something my mother would say. He looked at me and laughed and laughed. You are no doctor. You are no doctor. You are no doctor. UNO doctor. UNO doctor. I didn't understand what he was saying. Then he said, You are going to give vaccinations. You will go to the villages and give vaccinations. You want me to give a shot to someone here? I asked. I didn't understand what he was instructing me to do. Everybody else understood except me. Finally, he looked at me and said, Dr. America, UNO doctor, United Nations Organization doctor. You will work for the United Nations. You are going to go to villages and give vaccinations. In fact, I had made a very casual inquiry of some acquaintances who worked for WHO, the World Health Organization, but they replied that WHO was not hiring anyone at all. Meanwhile, over the next few weeks, Maharajji was always asking me, Did you get your job? I'd always say, No, Maharajji, and quickly drop the subject. One day, Maharajji said to me, Go to WHO, you will get your job. So I went to the WHO offices in New Delhi and saw the man to whom I had originally spoken. He was very friendly but pointed out that WHO had no openings and, in any case, they only hired expert consultants from medical schools and institutions outside India. Then he said, But there is one program. If they could ever do anything, it would be really nice, but it's doubtful they will be able to achieve their goal because it's so difficult. It's a smallpox program. The Indian government right now is adamantly against expanding the WHO program to fight smallpox. They have other problems such as malaria and family planning. Smallpox is not their highest priority, but I'll take you to see the French doctor, Nicole Grasset, who directs that program. We made an appointment to see her, and then I returned to the home of two of Maharajji's devotees, the barmans, and borrowed barman's suit and bought a terrible tie. I tied my hair into a ponytail and hid it under a white shirt. My costume was bizarre and ill fitting, and Nicole realized at once that I was just another hippie. She said, I'm sorry, we really don't have a job, but it's awfully nice to meet you. So I went back to Maharajji and he again asked, Did you get your job? I said, No, Maharajji, let's just cut this out. 2 more weeks passed and Maharajji looked at me and said, Go back to WHO. I took the bus, rickshaw trip back to WHO. Once more, I talked to my acquaintance Ned, and this time I filled out a different type of form, typed it a bit more properly, and sent it in and spoke with Nicole on the phone. Of course, there was no job there. The next week, Maharajji asked if I got my job and then asked me to call Nicole. It was getting embarrassing. This time I called her from Vrindavan. Again, she told me there was no expansion of the smallpox program, no possibility of hiring American doctors, but she thanked me for continued interest in the work. Sometime later, Maharajji suddenly called me and said, Immediately go to WHO. I took a train and went immediately to WHO. When I walked in the door, there was another man there. He said to me, "What are you doing here?" I gave my usual line. "I've come to WHO to work for the smallpox program. My guru told me I would work for WHO. I went up to Ned's office again and telephoned Nicole. She said there was still no expansion of the smallpox program, but that something had happened that day. The chief of the global smallpox program had come from Geneva. She suggested I come to meet him. I went to meet him, and of course, he was that man in the doorway whom I had just told I would be working for WHO. And it was his program I was going to work for. He interviewed me and wrote a note for the record. This young man seems to like foreign cultures and will probably do very good international work someday. However, he has no experience in public health, no training past internship, and I wish him good luck in the future. We have no job for him. What he said to me was that WHO could not hire me for several reasons. First, I had no public health training. I had never even seen a case of smallpox. Second, because of political tensions, the Indian government preferred at that time not to have Americans working in India. Third, they had not yet really geared up the program for smallpox eradication in India. Smallpox had been eradicated in all but four countries, but the strategy was to work on the other three first and then come to India. That was it. He added that there was a smallpox program in Pakistan and if that interested me, I had best give it some more thought. I paused and sheepishly said, "I am going to have to ask my guru." I went back to Maharajji. When he asked if I had got the job, I said, "No, but there's a possibility of a job in Pakistan." He yelled back, "No, I said India." So I telephoned back to WHO and told Nicole my guru insisted I work for WHO in India. That must have amused her, but she was polite as usual and thanked me for calling. After 2 months of this, Girija and I were exhausted and frustrated. We decided to take a vacation from it all in Kashmir. As we were leaving the ashram, I called Nicole at WHO and told her our plans. If by any chance a job comes through, I said, "Please call me in Srinagar." "You know," she said, "a very strange thing just happened. I suddenly had this inspiration. I don't know, maybe it's your guru or something like that. But can you write?" "Yes," I said. I'd edited some medical journals. "Well, we can't really hire you as a smallpox doctor, but if you're really that determined to work for WHO, maybe I could hire you as an administrative assistant." "Look, anything. Maharajji said I'm going to work for you and I'm going to go to villages and give injections. He's never been wrong." She changed my application from that of a doctor to that of an administrative assistant and sent a telegram to D.A. Henderson, the program chief in Geneva, Switzerland. "I'm going to hire Brilliant." She suddenly really wanted to hire me and put the application through. Still, WHO had not created a post in her unit. After our vacation in Kashmir, we returned to Kainchi and Maharajji's first smiling question, "Did you get your job yet?" "No, Maharajji, it's really very complicated." Again, he had me go back to Delhi. It was 10 times now that I'd gone back and forth like a yo-yo, each time putting on barman's suit and that awful tie. When I got to WHO, I found that my application as an administrative assistant had been approved, but that I would still have to pass a security clearance. Every American working from WHO must have one. When I got that piece of paper for a security clearance, I knew this was the end of the game. There seemed no chance in the world that I could get a security clearance. We had been part of the left wing anti war movement in the States. I'd been a leader of a radical organization, the Medical Committee for Human Rights. There was absolutely no chance for a security clearance. I came back to Kainchi feeling terrible. I explained all this to Maharajji and said that there may have been a lot of stumbling blocks up till now, but this was the last straw. Maharajji said, Oh, who is the person who's supposed to give you this job? I couldn't remember precisely who, but I mentioned that Henderson was the boss. Maharajji pretended to be a real fakir. He sat up straight and put his blanketed arm up before his face and asked, "How do you spell his name?" I started spelling it. "Wait," he said, and then he began repeating the letters slowly in a deep voice. He peeked out at me through his fingers, which were covering his face, laughing all the time. He continued spelling the name and he pretended to go into a trance, always peeking at me to be sure I was watching and properly impressed, but giggling as he did so. At the same time in Geneva, Dr. Henderson was attending a cocktail party at the American Embassy. The American ambassador and the Surgeon General were there. The Surgeon General asked Henderson how the smallpox eradication program was going. "Great," said Henderson. "We have 34 countries cleared and only 4 are left." "Are all the countries helping you?" asked the Surgeon General. "Yes, Russia has given us vaccine. Sweden's given us a lot of money, and all the countries are helping." The Surgeon General asked, "What about America? What are we giving you?" "Well," said Henderson, an expert in getting support for his program, "not so much." "What do you need?" Henderson replied, "I don't know how I got into this and I don't know why we're doing it, but we want to hire this young American doctor who has been living in an ashram in India. We've never done anything like that before, and the kid can't get a security clearance." The Surgeon General of the United States said, "Security clearance? What does he need that for?" Henderson replied, "Every American, in order to work for the United Nations, has to have a security clearance." The Surgeon General said, "I didn't know that. Who gives him the clearance?" Henderson said, "You do." "I do? Give me a napkin and tell me what the kid's name is." He took a cocktail napkin and wrote, "Brilliant. Okay to start work." He gave the napkin to Henderson, who telegraphed WHO in New Delhi that I had been cleared to work. The next morning, Maharajji called us into his office. He was being too nice, laughing and smiling. He had tea and jalebis brought in, and he hugged us. We were rubbing his feet. It was so blissful. Then suddenly Maharajji said, "Okay, time for you to go." We thought he meant to leave the ashram. We stood up and pranamed and then walked out and around the corner, and just as we approached the gate to the ashram, the postman came with a telegram from New Delhi. "We have been notified today that you have received a US security clearance. Come immediately to WHO New Delhi to begin work." So I went to WHO and began work as an administrative assistant. During the week, I worked in Delhi, and on the weekends, we came to the ashram to be with Maharajji. I remember one darshan in the back at Kainchi where we talked for 3 hours about smallpox. It was the most horrid disease I had ever seen. He told me everything about it, where it was located in India, where the bad epidemics were, what the seasons were, what the transmission cycle was, what places we would have trouble with, everything about the epidemiology. Epidemiology. We knew He knew much more than I knew, even after I'd worked with WHO for about 3 months. I asked him, "Will smallpox be eradicated?" I remember his answer because I wrote it down. "Smallpox will be eradicated. This is God's gift to mankind because of the hard work of dedicated medical scientists." At the WHO office, I was occasionally assigned to write up the operational plans, since my native language was English. Maharajji would help to organize the whole plan. Because my source of information about conditions in India was, well, so direct, shall we say, and because Maharajji's advice was so good, I began to get more and more responsibility. Still, after about a month of this, I was not feeling that Maharajji's prediction had come true because I still wasn't going to the villages to give vaccinations. There was as yet no such program. The project slowly moved to the point where they were about to go into the field. September was to be the first month. Some of the staff would go into the field, but not me, of course, since I was just an administrative assistant. I was to stay in New Delhi and mind the shop. However, it so happened that two of the Russian doctors who were to be assigned to an area where Maharaji had lived for a long period were held up by Soviet government formalities. There was this blank spot on the map, and there was just nobody except me who could be sent there. I was sent out of the office and into the villages. The jeep that Girija and I drove had a big picture of Maharaji on the dashboard. Often, when we went into a civil surgeon's office and told him about the importance of a serious smallpox program, he would say, "Yes, yes, thank you for coming. Now please leave. I've got so many other problems." Then, because of Indian courtesy, he might walk us out to our jeep and he'd see Maharaji's picture on the dashboard and ask us why we had it there. "Oh," I'd say, "he's my guru. He told me to go work for the United Nations. He told me smallpox would be eradicated. He told me this is God's gift to mankind through the hard work of dedicated medical scientists." And then the civil surgeon might say, "Oh, please come back to my office. Take tea. Since smallpox is going to be eradicated, how shall we get organized?" It kept happening like that every time, simply because Maharajji had said smallpox would be eradicated, and because all the Indian officials had heard that anything he said came true. They took our work seriously and put other things aside to help us. Often, skeptical WHO or Indian officials said to me, "Look, you understand India. You may eradicate smallpox everywhere else, but you know, India will never eradicate smallpox. It's just not possible." But when they heard what Maharaji had said, the Indian officials would often completely change their opinions. Soon, we were assigned to areas that were selected because of the negative attitudes of the local doctors. We talked about Maharaji's prediction. Some of the officials remembered when the Chinese invaded India in 1962 and Maharaji had said the Chinese troops would go back to China by themselves. And so these doctors would change their attitudes and motivate their people to do tremendous work, and soon smallpox would be beaten in their area. The effect of this was that although I knew very little about smallpox or the UN system, every time I was sent to a difficult area, through Maharaji's grace, smallpox would disappear. WHO kept sending me to strange and remote places. I thought perhaps it was just in Uttar Pradesh that I had such luck. But in January 1974, they sent me to a remote part of Madhya Pradesh, to a place that just happened to be part of the Shadhol district, Amarkantak, Maharajji's old Sadhu stomping grounds, which at that time was experiencing the worst epidemic in India. Nearly everyone in the district had known Maharajji, and when they learned that he had said smallpox would be eradicated, they cooperated and, despite their earlier skepticism, mounted a tremendous campaign in the remote hills. The epidemic was over. People within WHO began to ask me about Maharajji. Nikhil, my boss, really opened up to Maharajji in a beautiful way. First of all, she did think Maharajji had somehow influenced her to hire me. Second, since she always asked everyone's advice before making difficult decisions, she got into the habit of asking us, when we'd go to see Maharajji over the weekends, what he would advise about specific problems in the eradication program. He would send his advice back through us. His answers were full of wisdom on every level, practical as well as spiritual. Many smallpox workers began to respect him. Members of the smallpox staff had a quality about them that was different from any other group I met in the UN program. They were very inspired. We talked freely about Maharajji as they were all devout individuals. It took only 2 years of intense effort to conquer smallpox in all of India. When we started in 1974, there were 1,80,000 cases, with 30,000 deaths in only 1 year. A total of 400 epidemiologists from 30 different countries and 1 lakh Indian workers worked in a frenzy of compassion and commitment. Everyone in India had said it could never be done, even many WHO officials. But Maharaj Ji said it could be done. He said it was God's gift to mankind, and it was.